Yeah, that's.
There's not enough room here for.
All right, I'm going to call the
Do you want to
Vernon
sit here?
the Thursday, June 10th,
Do we want to move
Vernon
there?
Township Board of Education meeting to order. Ms. Linsky,
I
could we
blame the
please
schools.
have a roll call?
Mr. Nunziata?
Here.
He's not there yet. Ms. Coughlin?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Ms. Pellet? Not here yet. Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Linsky, could we please have a reading of the meeting notice?
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law.
Thank you. It's recommended that the board enter closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. Can I have a motion for the recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sweeney. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in close. We're going to go down the hall. And I think we need an extra table.
Yeah, I
We're a little-
think.
Okay, it's recommended that the board return to open session. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in open session. The first item on our agenda this evening is a presentation by Ms. Davino, our superintendent, Dr. McKay, assistant superintendent, on the ESSER 3 American Rescue Plan grant.
If I can get it working.
Say, is this the right microphone to use to be at home and live
For at home, yep.
or at home?
Give me 1 second.
Right.
I guess I gotta
I
guess I gotta move.
I feel like I'm on
Hardwire, like, I'll bring it up on that screen so you'll be able to see. Oh, but you don't want to be. in the
Mr.
one.
Sweeney, do you want to sit by me?
If it's okay, I'll sit by Kelly Mitchell.
And if anybody wants to sit, or if you want to sit like on my chair or Chuck's chair.
Well, that's loading on the-
You could grab a chair and
Putting it up there, but
No, no,
I'm
out.
not there. Put it over there.
Oh, I don't know. I think, is it for us too?
Can you move that podium? Just roll that podium out of the way so they can see that.
Yeah.
Karen, you might want to roll the podium out of the way so the public can see the presentation over there.
Oh, is it?
Only because the people in the audience, I don't think can see that screen and let with all that
Perfect.
stuff in the way.
There we go.
Yes, yes.
It's fun to be
I
back.
was just reminiscing when Dr. McKay fell. Do you remember that?
It's been
Oh,
He was
yeah.
giving.
Rumors are that he was
I
pushed.
still have that on video.
I was not standing next to him.
No,
He
I
was pushed,
I
it
still
was
have
not
that
me.
video clip of that meeting. I'll send it to you guys later.
You have the video clip?
Yeah.
Is it like a meme? Do you have music that
No,
goes to it
somebody
as
at
well?
home, somebody at home recorded it because they thought it was.
He was there.
Slow motion with chariots of fire.
He was like
It was,
squatting
it was a
down to
little less
acknowledge the
graceful
little
than he
ones.
remembers it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't graceful at all.
No.
We were giving the books to the small children.
Oh, my
whatever,
goodness.
and
Yes,
Yeah,
Mind
yeah,
Traveler.
yeah.
Mind readers, mind
Yeah.
Time travelers, yeah.
I
Yep.
backed up and down I went.
Down he went.
It's been over almost a year and a half, right? It's been
Since
over
we've
a
been in
year
this-
since we've been in this room.
Oh,
And
it's
look
a
at the
long
fond
time.
memories we had.
That's
Yes,
right.
exactly.
That's right.
it's all coming back to
And
us.
now you can pull it up here.
But then you have to plug it in, right? All right.
You guys should have a quick share.
No, I'll have this one at TV too.
Matt, you need a click share.
This does casting, but I
Oh, it
just
does.
moved this board to this building today and I need to do some reprogramming. We moved a lot of equipment to do this.
Yeah.
Like a lot of equipment.
Yeah, I can see.
And I have to move it tomorrow for next week's.
Next week's.
What's next week?
Summer
We're doing
plans,
three-
anyone?
We're doing 3 live streams next week, Capstone.
Justin has
Oh,
plans.
Sit by my pool. Right?
You done? No, you're gonna have.
We could play that game.
I know, I didn't bring the box.
I'm racing it.
I know.
Like if you're, if you could invite anybody to dinner, who would it be, alive or dead? That's one of the questions.
Ooh, that's a good one. Zoe, who would you invite to dinner?
Oh,
If you could invite anybody to dinner, who would it be?
alive or dead?
One choice?
Yes.
Oh. I think Emmeline Pinker. She was a secretary of England.
Yes, she was.
Nice.
I think that was the dirtiest thing I've ever said.
No, I liked it. That was awesome.
So wasn't she the one in the end that protested by walking in front of the horse, or was that another?
I
Did she
think
die
that-
tragically, Anchor?
She did actually die tragically, but somebody at something she organized actually was trampled by a police horse, but it wasn't her.
Right.
She actually died from complications of hunger strike she did while in prison.
Cool.
Yep. I beat you. You did.
Wow, all right, loading. There we go.
You try the clip. Jackson.
Good.
Just 1 second.
So which camera's where? This is, great. It's just, this one. Okay.
How's Paul?
New Jersey native.
So, Mr. Shea, can we begin or,
I'm going to cast this at home so you can see too.
wow.
All right, you're good.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Dr. McKay and I are going to give a brief presentation on the American Rescue Plan ARP ESSER 3 funds. As most of you know, this is the third round of funding that we're receiving from the federal government. They've been aptly named ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. So we have just been given some information. As many of you are aware, last week, Congressman Gottheimer came to Vernon Township High School. We had a beautiful press conference where he kind of celebrated being a really instrumental part in getting the ESSER 3 funds to Sussex County. Sussex County has been affected by some very deep cuts in state aid, more so than many other counties in the state. So tonight we're going to talk just a little bit about the ESSER 3 funds. So, and this is really more of a quick outline. So the first one says, when will we receive funds and what is the timeline? We're receiving about $1.4 million. That's approximate. We don't know when we'll receive the money. We're not sure if we will receive the projected amount or something lesser or greater than. And the project timeline, as you can see, is from March 13th, 2020, which is the last day that we were in school prior to COVID, all the way through to September 30th, 2024. Dr. McKay, do you want to talk a little bit about what ESSER 1 and 2 covered?
Right, so the key point here, as,
Yeah, he's going to need a
That's okay,
mic.
you have to-
oh,
I
yeah.
know, we'll have to share. We'll do Sunny
Oh,
and share
yes, of
later.
course. That would be great. The key piece is that all three of the grants start with the last day that we were in school, and that's statewide and federal. But this one extends to 2024. So that's a crucial piece here because it adds a year on to the grants that we've had. So the ESS ER1 and the CARES Act, of course, we use that funds for all the things that we bought, the screens, the materials, the different
Personal PPE, the
all
victory
PPE,
sprayers,
everything that we did with the first one. The second one we talked about, we've been talking about it for months now, and all the summer programs that we're putting together and all that we're attempting to do this summer, and then the mentor program for next year, all that we discussed last week. And then this is the latest. So the big difference, I think, is that the last one was signed at the end of December, the ESS ER2 by President Trump. And of course, this is the Biden package that came through after that. So, and these are federal funded. And then they federally go to the state decides what they're going to keep and then what they're going to distribute. So when we say we're not sure, we're not, but it looks like it projected at $1.4 million in two different payments. So.
Okay. So the quotes, I'm certainly not going to read them, but the quotes that are there, those are the exact words that are on the ESSER grant application, just so that you can get kind of a flavor for what they are talking about. I'll paraphrase the first one. It does talk about that not less than 20% of the ESSER allocation needs to go towards student learning loss, mental health services, unique learning needs of low-income children, intervention services, really has to do with social emotional learning, underrepresented student groups, and direct support to children. And that's really, really important for us here in the district. So Dr. McKay talked about the academic summer programs, but other things that we're talking about are things like learning acceleration, continuing to work with our very own Vernon Coalition, We're looking at a program called Mind Up for social emotional learning for next year, increasing it, maintaining the use, of course, of our trauma-informed team that are in each of our schools, after school busing and mentor programs. So you've heard about most of these. The difference in the after school busing, I know, is something that you haven't, we haven't really talked about yet, but it does talk about extended day. If you see it up here on your screen, summer learning or summer enrichment extended day. One of the things that we've noticed through the pandemic, and many of you are aware of this because you're parents, is that there's a general apathy for everything, right? There's an apathy for life. There's an apathy for involvement. There's an apathy for being a part of clubs and sports and programs. So we are really hoping that we can start to connect our children back to our schools in the fall. And one of the things that we really need to do is to ensure that we have opportunities available after school, clubs, co-curricular activities, sports, music, a very vibrant after school life, because it's not only important what happens between 8 and 3, but if that day is really from 7 to 4 or 5, you have more of those social connections for children, which is really important. Chuck, did you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I really think that that's crucial. So we're going to talk about the busing at the high school at 3:30. We're also going, and these are all part of the projected grants, but we're going to talk about busing that we have here. And we really, really want to make sure that we have active engagement. If our buses are filled at 3:30 coming out of the high school or 4:15 coming out of Lounsbury and Glen Meadow, then we'll know that we are successful and back on track. We are worried about apathy. We are worried about students just going home. We want to energize our buildings, learning acceleration, learning. We want them going home tired and excited about things like coding and excited about band and excited about choir. We want to build all of that back, build back better. We want to build all that back and make sure that we have it ready to go in September. So that's our goal.
The next slide really talks about the facilities piece. So again, the quotes are directly from the grant application. School facility repairs and improvements. And you folks can certainly read the slide, but it talks about everything really that has to do with some of the needs that we've identified in our schools and that we continue to identify. I'll give you a minute to take a look at the next slide, really expands on that. But it obviously identifies certain things like window and door repair and replacement, sanitizing and cleaning the facilities. So this is really the process. And this is why I wanted to talk a little bit more about the facilities. We have to determine the needs of our facilities, right? We've had some building walkthroughs. I know the Buildings and Grounds Committee did a building walkthrough, have talked about that a little bit. And interestingly enough, every time fresh eyes go into a building, we see new things, right? And those are really important things to capture. One of the things that we're working on now internally, of course, in the business office is identifying an architect who would create a long-range facilities plan for the district. We do not have a current one. A long-range facilities plan is a really instrumental, important piece for any district to have, so that we really should be talking about long-term planning. And we don't have a current strategic plan, right? But we really need to look at that long-range facilities plan to take a look at the imminent needs of our structures and our facilities, and then the things that we're going to have to maintain moving forward. So the architect would create the LRFP and determine the needs. And then, of course, he or she would report them back to the board, and the board would determine which resources are allocated to complete which facilities projects. We had a referendum committee that walked through and identified projects. We know that there are other projects, particularly during COVID, that are really, really essential. So for example, when we opened schools in September, Mrs. Smith is here, so she knows probably what I'm going to say, is that the NJEA had a checklist for reopening. And I have said it publicly before that I felt confident we could meet everything on the checklist except for the MERV 17 rated filters. At the time, the recommendation was MERV 17 or the highest filter that your system could take. Our systems are taking the highest filter they could take, but our systems are quite old. So the air filtration is something that I'm assuming the architect may identify as something we need to take a closer look at. That's not for me to determine. I'm not an architect, but that's just an example of a facilities upgrade that would really make sure that we have a healthy, safe facility for our faculty and for our students. Did you want to expand on this, Chuck?
I just wanted to say kudos to Ms. Linsky, who has spearheaded some of this, and the Buildings and Grounds Committee, because they've gone around and they've taken a look, and there's things that need to be done. for the safety of our students. So this is an opportunity as well.
Yeah, and this is really, I believe, the last slide, but how ESSER funds can impact or improve our schools. I talked a little bit about creating healthy learning environments for faculty, staff, and students. We perform better when we are in an environment where the temperature is comfortable and you don't have to wear a jacket, or, you're not freezing in a classroom. We have windows that, probably are letting in some cold air from the outside when we shouldn't have that in our schools, right? Improved value of education, I think often about, Ms. Mitchell, your perception of value. And I thought about that a lot in that I think that I hope that parents and community members will see that we are investing in our schools to make sure that we have a healthy, safe learning environment for our faculty. So our faculty feels valued, that they can come to work in a place where they can be productive because they feel valued. Providing enrichment activities and programs that focus on equity. This really goes back to some of those first bullets about taking care of all of our children, and equity is really important. We're seeing a shifting demographic in
This is
Vernon.
crucial.
We have an influx of students coming into our schools, and we're seeing that demographic in Vernon change a little bit. So I think we really need to take a look at how do we embrace every individual group of students and make sure that they feel supported. The next one says provide service and supports to underserved populations and strengthen our community of learners. There are portions of the grant that talk about low income, people of color, students with disabilities. All of our children really need to be part of that community of learners. Efficiencies is something that I talk about all the time. We don't have it here, but not in this room, but in some of our classrooms, there's like a window unit air conditioner. It's not really an efficient way to operate our facilities, in my opinion. And of course, I'm not an architect and don't have any background in facilities. And of course, preventative maintenance is really, really important. We do it in our homes. We should really be doing that in our schools. And the picture of the teacher with the muscles is we want to empower our faculty to feel really confident about the upgrades that I hope that we can pay attention to through the ESSER 3 funds, so that they can not worry about that other stuff and just focus on the children, because they're effective, they're dedicated, and they care about our kids. But they will be more effective when they don't have to worry about what's the temperature going to be like in my room? Is the air operating, properly? Is there a leak in a window? And all of the things that that we do sometimes deal with in schools. Dr. McKay, did you have anything else?
I would say as a conclusion, we'll continue to report out as we know more about the grant. We have to file it by November, and then we'll see how it all plays out.
I mean, the funds, we use a system called eWig. It's a state system, and we can log in to see when funds are available. And everybody at the county today was like, what's going on with the funds? And there has been no, we have not seen anything come through yet. So, but we do monitor that on a regular basis. And as soon as we know, then we can continue to provide updates to the board in regards to how this starts to develop and how we can best support our students and our facilities.
And we'll continue to talk about ESS ER2 and all that's funding next year. And then, of course, delineate as we move forward with ESS 3. But it does take us to 24, which is really important.
Questions, Mr. Annunziata?
Any
How would you like to
questions from the
proceed?
board?
Yeah, I guess I have one question. So it says, you said that 20% is earmarked for addressing learning loss with some of these things like busing and so forth. Those are busing and clubs are things that we've always had in Vernon. So is this money going to be used to expand on those programs? Or, I mean, can it be used, I'm not suggesting it should be, but can it be applied to expenses we already have, or is this going to enable us to expand on our busing and offer more after-school programs?
Yeah.
And
It is allowing us to expand on the busing because we don't have the 3:30 bus right now at the high school. So that will be reinstated. That would be one goal that we get reinstated. The other piece would be, yes, you can, they always worry about with a grant, whether you're paying for something you already have, right? And that's not what we're doing.
Okay.
That's why the summer programs, when we talk about the summer programs and all that planning and everything, these are, for the most part, things that we've never had before. And then when you talk about the mentor program that we're going to do next year, things that we've never had before. So again, this is the same situation. But if you're improving the classroom and air quality and all of those things. That's another whole piece to all this, if it's a facilities piece. And that's a big piece to this part. That's what we're hearing from everybody, which is this is your time to make sure your classroom's safe. So,
Right, but it said no less than 20%.
right. Oh,
before
no,
that.
no doubt. No
So
doubt.
then
that-
that brings me to my second question, and I know this is more about the previous SR1 and SR2, but you had mentioned that the Cedar Mountain program was an existing program.
Right.
So the summer program for Cedar Mountain, has that been expanded? Or is it?
The Cedar Mountain program is bigger than it's normally, but yes, it was an established program. The programs at the other schools are new.
Are we
So,
using
yeah.
SR funding for the Cedar Mountain program?
The Cedar Mountain program has funding from SR2. We're allowed to do that. Yeah, we are using it for the summer academic camp, but the summer academic camp is certainly a different ballgame than it's been in the past, in the sense that it's more, there's more to it. You have, the only issue with that is the dial 4 assessments, which we have to get done. So there's more to that answer than I can give right
Aren't
now.
dial 4 assessments only for incoming kindergartners though?
Dial 4 assessments are for incoming kindergartners, yeah.
So Cedar Mountain students are current. So what's being done for the current
Well,
students
yeah,
who have
the-
lost out this year?
Well, they're part of the, if they're identified, and I just had a conversation with Ms. Gebhardt, if they're identified through the screening program, then they're in the program. And we talked this afternoon about extending that invitation and trying to make sure that everyone was helped. So,
Okay. So they, right now, that program, those students are being identified. They're not, it's not something that's open to, it's not something that you can ask for as a parent, right? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, no, it's
Just trying to follow.
identification. Yeah. Based on reading.
For Cedar Mountain only?
Yes. That's what the summer academic camp has been. Yeah.
So I just want to build off of Jen's first question that she asked. Just to emphasize that as a board member, I would like to see that the ESSER 3 funds are being utilized to supplement existing programs, not to supplant existing costs in the district, to make sure that, these grant funds are being given to districts to really respond to an extraordinary circumstance that has been going on for the last 18 months. So I want to make sure that we're using it to address extraordinary circumstances, not just to cover existing costs.
Right.
Yeah, that was my concern as well. I think a big piece of this is going to be trying to draw more students back into the school community. Yeah. And I mean, offering things is great, but I don't know the how here, but I feel like we need to use some of those resources to try to engage, pull kids in, because just having it, if you build it, they may not come, right?
Right.
So
I agree. I think the mentoring program, pardon me, is a good start.
Yes.
Because it does speak to a more individual connection, and it allows a teacher to connect with a child on a different level, right? Not necessarily for academics, but in the very interest of, I want to bring you back into the school community. And that's really important. And you're absolutely right. We have to start to make those connections again, because kids don't want to be here. They don't want to be anywhere, right? In a lot of cases. I mean, I'm hearing about it, kind of all over the place. So yeah, you're right.
That's why I have such absolute faith in the after-school programs, because it's a choice. The child wants to be wherever, choir, band,
right, and they don't get
pride,
a grade. It's just
whatever
a different
group they
feel,
want to
right?
be involved with.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, it's the part though where we need to help them to make that choice. The
Yes.
ones that might not be already, preaching to we need to try to get the children that might not be thinking, oh yeah, I can't wait to join choir next year.
Yes.
And I don't know how you do that, but that's our challenge, I think.
Well,
It is
the
a
leadership of each building has to inspire students, and they know that they have certain people who are inspirers. And what they have to do is make sure those people are front and center, inspiring students at the outset of the year as we launch into 21-22, not slowly move into. We have to launch into 21-22.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, thank you.
Go back to the island.
Okay. Item G is approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for items G 1 through 4?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet.
My mistake.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
1 and 4, yes, 2 and 3 abstain.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yeah.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes, abstain from noted.
motion carries.
Thank you. Item H is correspondence.
Please note, number 1 under correspondence, and there is also a letter on the addendum, and number 2.
Thank you. Item I is President's Report. For the President's Report this evening, I want to take a quick moment to address something that occurred last week at our board meeting. I'm not going to comment on any personnel matters. However, I want to ensure the community that our superintendent of schools and our assistant superintendent of schools are committed to ensuring that all district policies are followed at all times, particularly when it comes to policies that are designed to ensure the protection and welfare of all of our students. On a personal note, I want to highlight that June is Pride Month and that the LGBTQ community is a big part of the Vernon Township School District, that we honor and welcome all of those members of that community to our schools, and we appreciate them being a part of our school community. So that will conclude the President's Report for this evening. Item J is committee reports. Ms. Mitchell?
I did mine already.
Oh, because we met last week.
Yes, we spoke about it last week.
Yes.
Okay. No committee reports this evening. Item K is public
What,
participation.
oh,
Oh.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nunziata, I have it,
Yes.
it's Teresa.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Conklin.
Okay, I had missed the last public meeting, so therefore I'm just going to loop back to the May meetings. So the first one is the special services meeting that was held on Thursday, May 5th, from 10 o'clock in the morning to 11:40 a.m. It was held both at the Board of Ed building and virtual. The members attending were Justin, Kelly, Jennifer, the superintendent, Ms. Davino, the new director of special services, Russ Fay, and supervisors, Suzanne McDougall and Cheryl Von Salzen, and myself as chairperson. We discussed mental health, multi-tiered system of supports. Students were referred out to agencies or other hospital systems, and in-house there's tier 3 is 504, IRS, among others. There's a youth advocacy program called the YAP. Students will have an excused absence to see YAP counselors during the school hours. YAP is not currently set up or running within the district yet, and there's no free therapeutic components offered in-house. We discussed the physical therapist and the posting for part-time, and we discussed the benefits of the new position. We discussed extended school year. It'll be held in person only, and it'll begin on July 6th, and the hours 8:30 to 12:30 at Cedar Mountain. ESY is not expanding to learning acceleration programs. That's something I'm going to be looping back to in the next meeting to learn more about. We discussed sensory rooms and spaces. They are being expanded in each school in the district. And there's going to be more to follow after more meetings about that. So that's very exciting. We discussed the shortage of aides and the new practice of notifying aides in June as opposed to previously in August, and professional development for aides with 8 hours of training required a year. We discussed the ABA MD classroom at Glen Meadow. It's very exciting. It's moving forward. There was a new teacher approved at a previous Board of Ed meeting, and they will have a classroom with a sensory room across the hallway. And students for lunch, they have choices of the regular cafeteria, the internal cafeteria rooms, and outside under the tents, so we can accommodate their needs as they need. And the pending business moving forward for the next meeting is the district mental health oversight structure and extended school year costs from 2017 to the present. And the next meeting will be held in July. The date is to be scheduled. And the next meeting is curriculum and technology. It was held on Wednesday, May 12th from 6 o'clock to 7:30. It was held virtual. The Board of Education members who attended were Justin Annunziata, Adina Luthner, Martin O'Donnell. The administration was Dr. Chuck McKay, Mr. Matt Shea, Mr. Russ Rogers, Mr. Vinnie Gagliastro, Ms. Cheryl Von Salzen, and Superintendent Ms. Davino, and myself as the chairperson. We discussed Spring Forward and the number of students in the high school auditorium, and the numbers have since went down. We discussed mental health. From June 21st to July 19th, mental health therapeutic counseling will be offered to students in Glen Meadow and at the high school. Discussion about insourcing versus outsourcing. We also discussed the learning acceleration programs, summer programs at no cost to parents and guardians, costs covered by the ESSER II grant. We also discussed the home filter and teacher filter for Securely. The Board of Ed will compose or amend a policy to match the superintendent's request for the home filter and teacher filters. The administration superintendent will communicate often and solicit feedback from the VTEA and VTAA. We discussed the high school graduation, questions and discussions on that. And the next meeting is to be scheduled. And then also I sit on the Sussex County Board of Director. I'm a board of director, I'm sorry, the Sussex County ESC, which is the Educational Services Commission. And the meeting that was held in May, ESC, that's the Sussex County Educational Services Commission, unfortunately had to go into a quarantine situation. At the end of April, they had to quarantine one class due to a student testing positive. The administrative team had such amazing respect for the flexibility of the students, staff, and families, and an incredible appreciation for all of the contact tracing that the school nurses in all of their programs have done. Also, the project search has continued to meet on site and provide incredible programming to all the interns. They will be wrapping up their final rotation soon and preparing for sustainable employment, which is very exciting for the students to be able to move forward. And overall, at Northern Hills Academy, April was an awesome month. Going with April was awesome. And they had a spring recess, and they also went with the monthly curricular themes: autism acceptance, differences and acceptances, poetry and rhyming, biology, animal life cycles, extreme weather, the weather cycle, spring sports, and Earth Day. And that is from the Sussex County ESC meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Conlon. That will conclude committee reports for this evening. Item K is public participation, and this is for items on the agenda and any student comments. There's a second public comment section at the end of the meeting as well. First, I want to begin, Ms. Linsky, did we have any email comments submitted?
Yes.
Okay, are they for agenda items or student comments?
No.
No, okay, so we'll read those at the second public comment section. Then we'll go to members of the public in person, and then we'll go to the Zoom session. So if you would like to comment, please step up to the podium. You have 5 minutes and say your name. And just to highlight for the community, there is a statement regarding the public comment section on our agendas, so please be aware of that.
Vicki Smith. I live in the Lake Walk Hill section of Vernon. I am an English teacher at the high school and the VTEA president. And I just have a question about the American Rescue Plan. Do you have any idea of when the committees are going to get together for the stakeholders, or have we decided that yet? Or
Because we want to get the parents and the teachers involved, it probably will be in September, Vic, only because we're at the end of the year. And of course, we take that input and put it into the grant when we submit it. So, and the grant doesn't get submitted till November. The one plan had to be written
Yeah, I'll speak to that. The other piece that Dr. McKay is talking about is the Safe Return Plan, which is part of the American Rescue Plan. That's in the packet for the board to review this evening. And in part of that plan, it talks about inviting public comment. And for the members of the board and for the public, it doesn't mean that we have to stand up and do anything publicly, but if the board approves the plan tonight, it'll go on the website and we'll invite public comment there. So we can start collecting information from the community in that way and then follow up, like Dr. McKay said, with everybody together in the fall so that we can solicit feedback from multiple stakeholder groups.
so the questions on online would be for community, and then the faculty and staff would be
Faculty
involved
could
in
respond
September.
that way as well, but
Well,
of
I'm part of
course,
the community too, so
yeah,
I can do
I
both.
know. I mean, they could, but of course, we'll follow up in the fall when everybody's back together.
Okay. And can I respond to President's report now, or do you wish me to wait?
Yeah, the president's report is part of the agenda.
Okay,
So-
thank you. I want to thank you very much for your statements as a member of the faculty. And I do feel that our district is welcoming of all our students. And as VTEA president, I want to reiterate that our members fully support every LGBTQ student, staff member, and community member. That will never stop. So thank you very much for your support for that portion of our community and of our students. It is very, very important that our students feel safe, protected, and welcomed in the school district. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Any other public comments? Okay, so we'll go over to the Zoom to see if there's anyone raising their hand to be admitted. And this is again for items on the agenda and student comments. Okay. All right, seeing no other public comments, we'll close it to the public at this time. Item L is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the superintendent's report that was distributed to the board and I believe was uploaded to the district website. It's very, very brief because we are at the end of the school year. So I just wanted to mention that on June 4th last week, I attended the superintendent roundtable breakfast in Hapakong. We celebrated Michael Chang, who's the valedictorian for this year. Usually these things are done in person, and for the longest time, we didn't think we'd be able to do it. But the superintendent of schools in Hapakong hosted a really, really nice breakfast for students that were recognized at the superintendent roundtable. High school scholarship awards night happened this week. It was a really tremendous event. Congratulations to all of our recipients. It was really wonderful to hand out scholarships and to provide awards and recognition to our high school seniors. Well deserved. They've all worked really, really hard. Now the planning for our capstone continues. Capstone, as a reminder for the board members and members of the public, is next Tuesday, June 15th, to be held at Mascherino Stadium outside. Hopefully the weather holds out. If not, the rain date is the following night. It begins at 6 p.m. I think we have over 100 responses of people that are going to be recognized, and we're recognizing everybody that we haven't had the chance to recognize live. So teachers of the year, retirees, people with years of service, Hall of Fame, teachers that have obtained their doctorates, just a lot of wonderful accolades for our educational community that we have not had the opportunity to recognize due to COVID. And of course, we continue to plan for advancement and graduation ceremonies, which are next week. And I just wanted to say a very special thank you to all faculty, staff, parents, administrators, Board of Education members, and students who made completing this very difficult school year possible. It has been very trying. Today, Dr. McKay and I had the opportunity to attend the Tolerance Fair. It has been, since I began in Vernon, probably my favorite event of the year. I wanted to thank Mr. Legaitis and Mr. Logie. Their students put on tremendous presentations despite COVID. The presentations were engaging, incredibly informative. I was so pleased and surprised to hear the level of expertise, maturity, intelligence that all of the students displayed their findings with. It was really, really special. I'm hoping that we continue to expand that because I think it's really, really important. And if we don't learn from the mistakes of our past, we will certainly repeat them. On to informational matters. I'd like to congratulate Gia Federici, who was honored at Sussex County Community College on June 1st as the recipient of the 8th grade Caring Award for Glen Meadow Middle School, sponsored by the Sussex County School Counselors Association. Gia was honored along with 19 other deserving Sussex County Middle School students. She was nominated by her teacher. She's an all-around wonderful role model for her peers. We're very proud of Gia, her accomplishments, her dazzling smile, her big heart, and most importantly, choosing kindness as a lifestyle. Congratulations, Gia. And I'd like to also congratulate Miss Virginia Vanderbeck, who's the winner of the Spring 2021 Mini Grant. Miss Vanderbeck was one of 17 applications that were reviewed and scored by the New Jersey ASCD. It's the Association for Supervision, Curriculum, and Development Central Region, and will be using her grant money to strengthen social emotional learning at the early childhood level. So that is money well worth invested back into our children. So congratulations, Miss Vanderbeck. Thank you for applying for the grant. Yes, well done. May I continue?
Yes.
Okay, recommendations under item 2A. It is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignments, assignment changes, appointments, stipends, salary adjustments, student teaching, mentoring as listed. The table begins at the bottom of page 3. For the members of the board, goes all the way through to page 5. And there are some items on your addendum that are numerous.
Okay, can we have a motion for recommendation 2A?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
With the coaches and the stipends, when it says open, so we're just approving the funds and then you'll fill that position?
Yes.
Okay.
We go around and we speak to people and say.
You should
"This
think
is the
about
best
coaching.
thing ever."
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if board members were supposed to fill those in.
Want to nominate or select people.
Yes. We're going to give them all to Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes. No more hockey for him. Did they say who your hockey coach is?
I was going to say, you know.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes, I have to abstain on one though.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Abstain.
Mr. Smaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, it is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of New Jersey statutes annotated NJSA 18A:11-12 attachment A.
We have a motion for the recommendation.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Zimmerman, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2C, it is recommended that the board approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, school safety, and random drug testing reports.
We have a motion for the recommendation.
No move.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
Was there actually one?
It was reviewed in the
Yes,
work
last
session.
week, yeah.
so-
Oh, I got you.
Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2D, it is recommended that the board approve the 2020-2021 SSDS Student Safety Data System Report for Period 1, Attachment B.
Motion for the recommendation.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia. Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2E, it is recommended that the board approve the Law Enforcement Against Drug Lead Program for the 2021-2022 school year, which will encompass instruction for grades 5 and 7 by the Vernon Township Police Department.
Motion for the recommendation.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second.
Second.
Who was the second?
I second.
You
I
can't
didn't
second
say
that.
anything.
You
Oh.
said Zimmerman. So
Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
seconded.
I'm sorry. Motion by Mr. Sweeney. And can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. My mistake. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2F, it is recommended that the board approve the Article 12 Maintenance of Agreement Annual Addendum between the district and law enforcement, Attachment C.
We have a motion for recommendation 2F.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2G, it is recommended that the board approve the Safe Return Plan, Attachment D.
We have a motion for the recommendation. Motion by Mr. Smaglia, second.
Second. Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
I just want to thank our superintendent for all of her hard work on that plan.
Seeing no other questions or comments, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 2H, it is recommended that the board approve the vendor mindful assessments and psychological services LLC. This agency does individualized assessments on twice exceptional students.
Can we have a motion for the recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, a second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments?
what is twice exceptional students?
I will do my best to answer this. If not, Mr. Fay will help me since he's here this evening. Twice exceptional students, I believe, are children who are both classified for special needs and also show gifted ability. Would that be more or less accurate, Mr. Fay?
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Teresa. As the chair of special services, I always send out emails requesting the contracts for anything to do with special services. So if it could please be shared with the special services committee, the contract for that, and then also on the next letter on the agenda. That way I don't have to ask for, go into it the next time, but thank you.
Yeah, I can send the Lakeside one to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions or comments, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin,
Sorry, I muted. Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter I, it is recommended that the board approve Lakeside Therapeutic Clinical to do therapy with our students, which is grant funded.
Can we have a motion for recommendation I?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none.
Could the board just get an explanation of that, like what it's going to entail, who's involved, which students? That way we can just have a better understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Fay and I reached out to Lakeside Therapeutic to see if we could find some therapists outside of our school district that could work with our students so there was no conflict. And Lakeside supplied us with one therapist at this time, although they're working on others. The therapist that they have offered to us would be for someone who is working with older students, would be Glen Meadow students and the high school students. So the next stage is to make sure that the students all folks are aware that the therapy is available this summer, and it will be available from June 21st through July 30th. And then as things develop, we will hope to have it after school during the school year as well, because as you well know, there's $45,000 in ESSER2 grant money for mental health. So that's how we're spending it. So we're hopeful, Ms. Coughlin, that there'll be other therapists that will join us as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. McKay, for the explanation. So that way everyone has a good understanding. And thank you to you and Mr. Fay for working on that. Much appreciated.
Yes, and the thanks goes to Mr. Fay as well. We were reaching out all over the county. As a matter of fact, I received an email yesterday from Mr. Blevins, and I want to apologize to him because when I was talking about reaching out to him, I was saying that he was supervisor over some of the county therapists, and he wrote me back and said basically he has a team of 16 clinicians, but that he could just offer us names. It wasn't like he was basically supervising them. So I want to apologize to Mr. Blevins, but we have been reaching out, and I want to thank Mr. Fay for all of his work with that as well.
Great. Thank you both very much for all of your work on it. It's very, very much appreciated. Thanks.
Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2J, it is recommended that the board permit the superintendent to fill any vacancies that occur after the 6/10/2021 board meeting and before the 7/15/2021 board meeting. The recommendation for the hiring will appear on the agenda of the next public meeting. All positions must be within the parameters of the school year 2021-22 budget or deemed necessary by a student's IEP.
Can we have a motion for recommendation J?
Move.
Motion by Ms. Pellet, second. Second by Mr. Semaglia. Questions or comments?
I have a question. We're meeting on the 24th of June, so wouldn't this be unnecessary? Because we could put anything that needs to be on there on the 24th of June.
Yeah, I think this was placed on the agenda before we had a scheduled June 24th meeting.
Oh, okay. So then can we
Pardon me.
just strike this?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if it's something we've done. I don't know if we did it last year, but we've done it here at different times. I don't know the history of the
In the past,
Item.
this was done as sort of a boilerplate statement
Yeah.
to make sure that we were covered, because oftentimes the next board meeting would be 6 weeks,
Mhm.
the end of July. But as you point out, Ms. Mitchell, we are going to have a meeting at the end of the summer, although we haven't officially published that
Well, it's going to be published today, right?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
tomorrow.
yet.
Yeah.
So we can table this.
So we
Yeah.
can just table this.
But
Yep.
There's a
Can
motion
I
on the
comment?
table. You have to vote on it, don't you?
Ms. Linsky?
I feel that if we have a meeting the 24th, a lot could happen between the first, the July 1st, the 8th, and the next meeting is the 15th. And over the summer, I believe the hiring is very important. So it's just something you might want to consider, that if you have a candidate who, needs to get
Approved.
an offer and we're going to lose them.
Well, I mean, it's only a 2-week period of time. I just don't think that
So the line that says the recommendation for the hiring will appear on the agenda of the next public meeting. So
It's 3 weeks.
would the board still take action
Yes.
at that
You have
subsequent
to.
meeting?
Yeah.
So,
I'm just putting it
so
out
we
there.
would,
It's just something
we
you might
would
want to
still
think
have
about.
to approve.
Yeah.
You would, but you're giving her you're giving the superintendent the authority to hire in the case of.
no, she would be hiring.
Yes, but then it says here that the recommendation for the hiring will appear on the agenda of the next public meeting.
So what would
the
happen
board
if
would
we-
still have to take action
Mhm.
Right.
to
But it'd already be done.
Yeah.
So
If
it would
she
be already
hired
done.
and voted
That's
no,
the
what would
fact, so-
happen?
It wouldn't be a recommendation, it would be
It
like
would
just a
just-
notification.
Acknowledgement more than anything.
I would rather table this. We're meeting on the
I don't think we can table. We
24th.
have a motion on,
Well, somebody can make a motion to table.
I'm making a
Even
motion to
so
table
there's
it.
a first and second on
Yeah.
this motion. Do we not
Yeah,
have to
anybody-
vote on this motion first?
Anybody can make a motion to table once the
Right.
questions.
Once it's open.
I'd rather make a motion to table that. So that's what I'll
Okay,
do.
so there's a motion to table.
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote on the motion to table the recommendation?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, Item 2K, it is recommended that the board approve the 2021 summer curriculum work is listed below. 2K is on your addendum, and there's a chart that goes along with item 2K.
Where,
Page 3 of the
It's in the
agenda.
agenda.
okay, we have a motion for recommendation to,
So move.
motion
I'll
by
motion.
Ms. Pellet, second,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have the roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell,
I just want to say one thing. If an addendum is going to have this much information on it to be reviewed, I'd like to get this addendum earlier than tonight because it's pretty hard to review this much information, in a short period of time like this. We can get our packages 2 days in advance and the addendum just came tonight and there's a substantial amount of information on this.
Right. And
So
and
I
can-
would like to see us get this a little bit earlier if we could. An addendum's usually made for a couple last minute things.
Yes.
This seems like this was something that's pretty well thought out.
As we were trying to put together the summer curriculum work, there was still pieces that had to be placed and we wanted to make sure it was in one chart. And the stipends, again, we've been pushing to make sure that we had as many people hired as we possibly could because we weren't sure when the next meeting was. So I will take responsibility for making sure this was on the addendum, but when we were working through this, Pat Braich and myself, we wanted to make sure that you had all the accurate information.
So, roll call vote.
Mr.
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Abstain.
Mr. Sinaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
motion carries.
I have nothing further.
Yes, I
No,
Oh, item L.
Second.
Sorry. I do. I have one more on the addendum. Item L, 2L, it is recommended that the board approve the 21-22 stipend list as listed below.
And we have a motion for recommendation to all.
So move.
Motion by Ms. Pellet, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments?
Just on the chart, what does long stand for?
Longevity.
Oh, okay, so
In
that's,
the coaching positions, there can be longevity.
okay,
Mhm.
just didn't know what it was.
That's okay.
And then when it says set, does that mean? What does that mean?
There are steps there's 3 steps to any stipend. And then once they get to the top step, they stay on step 3.
Oh.
And there's a differential on the salary, but then there's longevity that kicks in later on.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Lanziana,
Yes.
Mr. Sanavia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item M.
Please note the informational items. A is the use of buildings and grounds. Field trips, letter B. Letter C is there has been no obligations that have overexpended any of the counts of the district.
I really hope the date on the freshman dance is wrong. Otherwise, I think there's a bunch of kids running around, right? Isn't today the 10th? What is it? It says the 9th.
You're right.
Okay. Otherwise, our high school is being invaded.
Okay, so, and also on the addendum, an informational item to discuss for discussion tonight is the bid openings at Board of Ed public meetings. This was brought up. I had brought something in front of the board for approval, and then I was informed that a decision was made to open all bids at BOE public meetings. I just wanted to know if we could amend that, and because all bid openings are in the public anyway. Any member of the public can come to a bid opening. So I just want to put that out there for discussion.
What would be the purpose of, I mean, what difference does it make?
Well, I don't think you've done many capital projects. So if you put out a bid for a capital project, you could have 20 different companies showing up at the board meeting. And it's quite a process to open all those bids and determine, who was the highest. You're not awarding it at that point, but other contractors will look to who was the lowest bidder, because you have to give it to the lowest bidder, and then they'll want to look at the other bids. It's quite a process and could be quite time consuming. So I don't know. It's not a common practice to open bids at BOE meetings. They are by law need to be opened with the public present if they wish to be there.
How
But
is the
then I
pub-
have a question. Oh,
It's okay, you go.
so then I have a question. If it's open to the public anyway, then couldn't all the contractors you just said might come to the public meeting be able to go to that to see everything? So then,
But yes, they would come they'll be there. They usually,
They would be there
sometimes
anyway, you're saying? Like they would come anyway when it comes to.
they'll
business
come
office or-
because a lot of bids, there's a lot of time and resources that go into preparing bids. So they have a lot on the line when a large bid is being opened. So if you have $1 million project or, windows or whatever, they have a vested interest to be there and look at other people's bids.
So is this something that is announced then in advance for the public and then they can come if they want? Is that how
Correct.
it usually works?
It's
Okay.
typically in the bid itself.
Okay.
I do a lot of bid
Yeah.
work. Those bid meetings can get very long.
Very long.
I mean, you could be reviewing 12 bids
So we
in
just
detail.
haven't had that because we haven't done a big project.
Right.
Okay.
And
We did have a couple of bids, but the board agreed to have it this way because of a sense of transparency.
Right.
So that's why we did that.
Right, but it is transparent anyway, because it's a it's a public opening of the bids that's open to the public specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay, and anybody can go to it. So, and it's actually in the bid when the bids will be opened and what time and everything else. So I think that I don't think it belongs in this meeting. It really doesn't. I think it belongs in its own meeting where people can discuss that bid in particular, and that can be a 2-hour discussion. So, I mean, especially with, like Teresa said, with the capital projects that we're going to start doing here, we could be opening 12 different bids and reviewing 12 different bids that could be 40, 50 pages in length each.
Right.
So I think that would actually get in the way of us getting done what we need to get done in this meeting.
And all bids will be presented. They have to, you will have a list of all the bids that were opened and the prices. And we have to, as long as it's a responsive bid, we have to give it to the lowest bidder. But you'll always have that list of who bid and what their price was, and then the award.
Right, and if the public wants to discuss it at that time, it's on the agenda. So if somebody wanted to come in our meeting and discuss that particular bid that we would be approving or disapproving that night, they could make their comments then. And you'd have all the bidders, the prices. You just wouldn't be going through everything in detail. Like, did this bidder, comply with this requirement? Well, this bidder didn't comply with this requirement, so we have to default him. And that type of thing. And it can really be an arduous process.
Yeah, I mean, we just changed it about 2 years ago. That's when it was changed to open it at the board table. So I don't really remember the circumstance on that. Do you?
I wasn't that long ago.
It was 2 years ago. I think.
I mean,
Prior
I'm
to COVID.
comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with having it's
I'm
public.
fine with that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just
fine
didn't
with it.
remember the circumstance. I was just trying to give you some history on why it was
Why,
changed.
right.
Yeah.
To be transparent, can we just announce it for the meeting before the board, say, upcoming bidding meetings are gonna be this date? And then the public would know it all. be informed.
Oh, to remind people.
I don't
to
see a
bid
problem
opening.
with that. Teresa, you see a problem with that? Doing
No.
that as part of your report?
Nope, not at all.
That's a great idea.
Right, so
Yeah, to build on what Kelly said, the practice was put in place because to offer transparency, because there were questions on, numerous parts of our bids, even though they were open to the public. So that was put in place. So therefore it would be included in our meeting, completely transparent and public. I don't recall who understandably made that recommendation, but it was a practice that the board did to offer transparency and move from that way. So if the board believes that it's not needed at this time, then so be it. Just wanted to throw that out there because I was the one that was surprised when the bid was supplied at the meeting. And I, having been with a past precedent that they were made in public, that's when I had asked about it because I was trying to follow, what the board practice was at the time.
right, so is there consensus from the board on what direction we want to go?
I'm fine if
Yeah, I
Teresa
think-
wants to do that, and then you'll report back out. That's fine.
Everybody okay with?
Mhm.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right,
Not that I don't want to be with you for 3 hours, additional. I definitely do.
Something besides a bid opening.
Yeah, it could be something more
Be your
exciting.
own
More
little-
fun.
a little
That wasn't
My-
a
my-
policy that we need to change. It was
No,
just
it's
an
just a
agreement
practice.
amongst the board that that's the way.
It would- yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So it doesn't need a motion.
No, we
doesn't-
don't have to vote on it.
No,
Right.
it's just it was just direction that was given to the BA, so we're giving new direction
Okay.
Yeah.
at this time.
Going in a new direction.
Okay,
Okay,
item 2 is recommendations.
all right. Recommendations A, it is recommended the board approve the following financial reports. It's the checks, the hand checks. Well, the checks for June, hand checks for May, transfers for May, and purchase orders for May.
Okay, can we have a recommendation, motion for recommendation 2A?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second,
By Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes, abstain from noted.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter B, it's recommended that the board accept the report of the secretary for current operating fund for the month of May and the report of the treasurer of school monies for the month of May, and they are in agreement.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2B?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter C, it is recommended the board approve transportation as listed below. There is quoted contracts, parental contracts.
Can we have a motion for recommendation C? Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter D, the sent receive schedule.
Can we have a motion for recommendation D?
So moved.
We, Ms. Pellet, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter E, it is recommended that the board approve a deposit into the capital reserve in the amount not to exceed 3.8 million.
We have a motion for recommendation E. Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter F, it is recommended that the board accept the application and approve the American Rescue Plan ARP ESSER 3 funding in the amount of $1,459,239.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
second. Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments? So, so even though we haven't completed the application yet,
You accept it.
we're accepting the
Mhm.
application.
Mhm. And then we go through and then there'll be a final.
A lot of times with these grants, they ask
This
for
is
the
what they
board
want.
approval.
Yep.
And that's why, like, this probably will change. If we get any amounts different than what we were originally given, you will see this amended. But
Got
again, you have to upload the resolution to the grant in order.
Even though we don't know what it's going towards.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You're approving us to apply for the funds.
Okay. And then when we do get the funds, do we approve
The acceptance.
how they're allocated?
You approve how the funds are allocated.
We accept them, but then
You
do
accept
we have
them.
any?
And then will we have like a rendering of what's going to be done with them?
Yeah, before, when we know the final number, the final amounts, we will report out what those funds will be used for. And
Okay.
that's what will be in the application.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter G, it is recommended that the board approve the list of approved vendors authorized to receive ongoing contributions for a 457 plan.
Can we have a motion for recommendation G?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments?
What exactly is this?
School district employees have an option to contribute to their 403B plan, and they have the 457. We are the only state employees that have this option. Police, I believe, contribute to the 457. So this is the vendors that we use for the 457 plan.
Seeing no other questions or comments, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter H, it is recommended that the board approve the following for a first reading: the lead testing in water in the schools. P 7425 and Regulation 7425.
Can we have a motion for recommendation H?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Pellet, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sweeney. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter I, it is recommended the board approve the following policy regulation for second reading: postnatal accommodations, policy 3421.13, and the regulation and policy 4421. One is for teaching staff, one is for support staff.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2I?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second. Second by Mr. Sinaglia. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter J, it is recommended that the board accept the report of annual awarded contracts pursuant to Public Law 2015, Chapter 47. The Vernon Township Board of Education intends to renew, award, or permit to expire the following contracts previously awarded by the Board of Education. These contracts have been, and will continue to be in full compliance with all state and federal statutes and regulation.
Can we have a motion for recommendation J?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter K, it is recommended the board approve the 2021-2022 school lunch prices and related a la carte prices.
Can we have a motion for recommendation K?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments?
Is there an increase to any of these fees?
There is an increase to just the adult prices. There is a premium lunch,
Okay.
and there's a 15 cent increase on that. And soup, there's a 50-cent increase. And that is because they are going to start serving bread, pretzels, something as a side
With
with
the
it.
soup. And so we did, now the funding has sunset for the free lunch
Next year, it's going into next year.
Okay.
But we're not changing the regular student pricing at all.
No, but there is no charge.
Right, but
Right.
for
Right,
next
nope.
year, there will be.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's free lunch next
Oh,
year.
lunch. Oh, it is
it's-
free
it's
lunch.
Yeah.
Continuing for the next
Yeah.
school year.
Oh, but
Okay.
then, oh, okay. Oh, so this is just the adult. Okay. Oh, so we
Or
will
if
get
there's-
that, will we get that for the entire school year next year?
I'm not 100% sure. I think so. So I think so.
Oh, good.
Right now, we're set to receive, everybody gets lunch.
Do we have to vote on that again or that carries on?
It carries on.
Oh, good, good. Oh, that's fabulous. Great.
So then I have a question looking at the menu. So the student prices are 0, so they won't pay. But then if they go a la carte, anything extra, they pay for. Is that what this is showing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter L, it is recommended that the board approve the application and accept the award for the 2021-2022 IDEA Consolidated Grant as follows. The IDEA Basic, $767,000, IDEA Preschool, $29,000.
Can we have a motion for the recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Pellet, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia.
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter M, and in light of the conversation we had prior regarding granting Ms. Davino authority to hire, this is granting me authority to pay bills before the next meeting, but now that we have one scheduled for June
The
24th,
yeah.
you can table this one also.
Well,
Okay.
this one doesn't have a motion on it, so you can just pull the recommendation. so
Okay.
If you'd like.
Yeah, I'll pull it.
Okay. All right. That was a marathon.
Yeah.
of-
That was a lot.
Of recommendations, but
Yeah.
I think we had a solid hour of recommendations that we got through.
Good thing
We're
we
in a
didn't
good
do any
place, though.
bids.
What's that?
Good thing we didn't open any bids.
Yeah, true.
Okay, item N is public participation, and that is for items on the agenda or any other business. And as noted, there is a disclosure regarding public comments on our agendas each month. If you would like to make a comment, please step up to the podium. You will have 5 minutes. Please state your name for it.
Jesse, do the red after.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Sign sheet's new, very exciting.
Zoe, the reason we do that now is because every once in a while, someone comes up and says their name and we don't catch it. And of course, when Mrs. Smith is recording everybody's comments, we're not sure the spelling
said
of the
what?
name, et cetera.
Right.
and et cetera.
That's fine. I'm excited, so that's fine. My name is Zoe Heath. I live off of Breakneck Road in Vernon. As some of you know, I am Vernon alum, and I am here to talk about the comments made by a faculty member at the last meeting. I understand that you cannot comment on a faculty member publicly or anything that has happened, so I appreciate you just letting me talk at you for the next 4.5 minutes. Some of you also may know that while I was at Vernon Schools, I started Sussex County Pride. It is a LGBTQ+ rights organization for Sussex County. We advocate for youth. We have pride events. We follow what our elected officials are doing. We believe in action, advocacy, and pride. So the LGBTQ+ community is very important to me. I came out when I was at Vernon in like 7th grade. And the faculty member who spoke the last meeting, who made incredibly disappointing comments. I actually had my freshman year of high school, and I always wondered, why is Mr. DeJulia treating me a little bit differently than everybody else? I didn't understand. Everybody else really seemed to like him. And then I started the GSA the following year, and when a cross appeared above his classroom door, I realized why. Mr. DeJulia's comments not only could have outed multiple current and former students to faculty and family, it put lives at risk, and they were extremely inappropriate, not only as an educator, but as a human being. It's not only inappropriate to talk about any student in public the way that he did, but it could have frankly gotten somebody killed the way he talked about transgender students in public and outed them that way. Personally, I believe that Mr. DeJulia should resign. And I know that he does not represent Vernon schools. I went through Vernon schools. I know what kind of welcoming community that we are. But we should not let this stand, because right now, Mr. DeJulia represents our schools and he's with our students every day. I know you can't say what's happened is going to happen, but it should be known that it would be a disservice to the LGBTQ+ community and all other students if he remained an employee. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Savon Kraus. I'm the Vice President of Diversity Pride Center in Milford, Pennsylvania. And I'm a resident of Vernon, New Jersey since 1983. I live in the Glenwood section of Vernon. And I'd like to address the board about the teacher who has stated he will not follow state guidelines about transgender children and the state guidance that is followed by the Vernon school system. He is violating HIPAA if he outs any transgender child. So if he decides to go rogue and not follow the guidelines, I can only hope the consequences are not just a slap on the wrist. His concern that their brain is not fully developed to understand what they're doing, and quoting the 60 Minutes episode about transgender brain size. With that type of thinking, he must also be against anyone under 25 making a judgment to buy a car, marry, have a baby, drink, vote, and go off to fight our wars among the many other decisions that people can make under the age of 25. When a student comes out and prefers a different name and pronouns in school, they're doing so because they feel school can be a safe place to do this. Nationally, 40% of households in the US are not accepting a transgender person. 15% of people, when they come out, are thrown out of their house for being transgender. 1 in 10 children, when they come out as transgender, will be violently assaulted by a family member. Data from the 2015 US Transgender Survey and the University of Texas at Austin in 2019, the suicide rate in the transgender community is over 40%. Just having one adult in their life using their proper name and pronoun reduces that risk to 24%. 1 of 3 or 33% of transgender youth reported considering suicide. Just having one context, such as the school environment, using their chosen name and pronouns, reduce suicidal thoughts to 21.7%, or roughly 1 out of 5 transgender students. These statistics alone should be enough so some rogue teacher doesn't start outing transgender students. And in his presentation last meeting, he basically outed these kids by mentioning the grade they were in. I know the board supports this policy for transgender children, but I hope they will also support consequences by any rogue teacher outing a transgender student. And I thank you for your time.
Good evening. I report for Strauss News. My name is Frances Ruth Harris. My question for the board is, do you observe and affirm the separation of church and state given the actions of the teacher that's been described earlier? Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who are attending in person who would like to comment at this time? Okay, we'll go to the Zoom meeting to see if any members of the public would like to comment via Zoom.
We have a raised hand, Caitlin Picarello.
Okay.
Hello, are you waiting for me?
Hi, yes, the floor is yours.
Oh, I apologize, I didn't hear. This is Caitlin Picarillo. I am in the Williamsville Estates section of Vernon. I am a proud mom of a newly graduated kindergartner at Cedar Mountain as of today. I wanted to touch a little bit on what was spoken about earlier with the summer programs and ask the question, why was the decision made to exclude a summer learning loss program from Cedar Mountain? Everyone was impacted by COVID, and in the spirit of equality, which the ESSER funds highlight, everyone ought to be eligible to participate. And that includes those with special needs, even those who have a one-on-one aid in their IEP. I believe there's a class of students not currently being represented in the summer offerings at Cedar Mountain. They either don't meet the eligibility criteria for ESY or the sort of unclear eligibility criteria for the summer academic program. So I was hoping for some answers. Why was that an exclusion from Cedar Mountain this summer?
Thank you, Ms. Picarillo. The administration may respond to some of those questions during open board member forum. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment via Zoom? Okay, we did have an email comment.
Yes. Good evening. I would have made this meeting in person, but I am at work. I also will try my best to tune in to get my answer to my following question. My name is Tina Bradshaw. I have a son in 8th grade going into the high school. I have some very large concern considering these mask mandates. Over the past year, I complained a lot about my son doing the at-home school and the hybrid, saying that it was not a proper way for him to get an education. That I feel like the lesson plan should have been modified to better suit a child to teach themselves at home. My son got overloaded with work, and he would spend 12 to 13 hours a day. That's right, 12 to 13 hours in front of his Chromebook doing work. With the extreme overloads from the teachers, it also took him longer because he doesn't do well when he is not in the classroom. I tried my absolute best to help him, but it was very frustrating. Due to that time frame of him being sitting in his desk for those long periods of time, my son had acquired fatty liver disease from lack of movement. So that decision from the Board of Education has now given my 14-year-old a permanent health problem that we are fighting extremely hard to correct. That being said, the next problem that I am having is the mask mandate. My son has asthma and a heart murmur and fatty liver disease now. At field day, June 7th, the heat index was over 105. The humidity was high, and the 8th grade class had field day. My son informed me there was nowhere for him to go underneath the shade, and anytime any of the children stood underneath the water tent where they got Dixie cups of water, they were told to get back into the sun. He told me many of his friends felt sick. One of his friends threw up, and he felt like they were being tortured as the teacher screamed at them. After this long day, my son then had to sit in a stagnant hot gym with a mask on to cool off. Then had to sit on a stagnant hot bus with a mask on. When my son got off the bus, he almost collapsed. He came home with a bright red face and extremely sick. He went to bed early that night in his air-conditioned room, and he attempted to go to school on the following day, June 8th. He did not make it the whole day because I had to pick him up. there are teachers still masking the kids in the school during this excessive heat. Today is now June 9, and my son is still home because of the very poor decision making the school board Monday. This field day should have been rescheduled for the end of the week when the heat wave broke. My concerns moving forward are the mask. I do not condone my son wearing a mask in the school, and I will not be forced to keep him home and hinder his education for him to breathe freely and not become sick again. After all this, my question for the Board of Education is how many more times are things like what happened to my son going to happen? And what are you gonna do about the masks moving forward? Because quite honestly, I feel like after what my son was put through Monday, a lawsuit sounds pretty good right now. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your response.
Was that the only email comment?
Yes.
Okay. All right, seeing no other public comments, we'll close it to the public at this time. Item O is open board member forum. I first want to just go over to the administration because there were one or two parent comments that
Sure.
could be answered or clarified.
I'm in contact. Thank you, Mrs. Picarillo, for your comments. I am in contact with the new principal of Cedar Mountain. As we move forward in the next week, we are looking at a couple of options for programs. Yes, we do have ESY, and yes, we do have the summer academic camp, but if that's not covering all of our students, we can work as we move forward. We are worried about staffing as well, but I will do the best I can to try to address the concerns that you have.
Mr. Vino, do you want to respond to the concerns about masks in the buildings?
Ms. Bradshaw's comments, I guess, at the end. I do know that Mrs. Gebhardt has spoken several times with Mom when the mask mandate changed on Tuesday, Monday, early in the week. Many area superintendents put out letters kind of immediately in response to Governor Murphy's statements. And they are being interpreted different ways in different schools and in different districts. It's my understanding over the last couple of days that people have been very courteous about supporting those who still wish to wear masks because either they feel nervous or they have a health condition. I do know that for the 8th grade field day on Monday, that children were not wearing masks while they were outside. It was excessively hot, and that we did not have children wear masks during other field days outside. So I don't know if that clarifies her questions, but I get the gist that that was some of the concern that you brought forward.
Okay, maybe a follow-up with that parent would be helpful. to
Certainly.
clarify those concerns. Anything else for open board member forum?
I had sent something to both you and Kelly in reference to discussing a contracts committee.
Yes.
And I was told that it was going to be on this agenda. It is not. Why?
That was an oversight on our part for putting it on the agenda. I did reach out to the board attorney, so we can talk about that at this point.
Okay.
During open board member forum.
I think that to have a contracts committee is a good thing. I think that I do know we have lawyers and whatnot, but they're lawyers.
Yeah.
There are some of us on the board who do have contract experience. As well with many of the capital improvement projects that we have coming up, there's going to be a lot more contracts. So I just think it's a good thing. Like I said, I did review the contract for the football field. There was, I would consider, I'm not going to say considerable. I'll say enough oversights to throw up a flag. Okay. And I think that there were a lot of things that still could have been put in that contract that would have been advantageous to us. I know that we cannot, as board members, tell somebody what to do with the contract, but we sure can make recommendations. And in reality, that's what any committee does. So I'm not sure why that would be an issue, because the committee would simply be making recommendations on certain contracts. But I will say, if we do not have a committee, I will still personally review all those contracts.
So Mr. O'Donnell did reach out and ask for that to be an agenda item, so that was an oversight to not put it on this evening's agenda. I did begin to reach out to the board attorney for some guidance about some of the questions that you and I corresponded about over email regarding establishing a separate committee for just reviewing contracts. My concern initially when we talked about this over email was about making sure that we're in the proper role as board members, that we're not the ones negotiating with vendors or trying to administer the contract in any way. And I'm not trying to take away the right of the board or any individual board member to review anything that we approve, because we absolutely have that right. My thought process on it is that we do have committees that are already standing that are involved in a lot of the projects, if not all the projects that we would be doing, whether it's the finance committee or the buildings and grounds committee. And the proper way to make sure that the final contract that comes before the board is reflective of the board's intent is to make sure that the bid is written in a way that the board wants that contract to read, because the contract should be a reflection of the bid that we put out. So I think that it would be more proactive on the board's part to be involved in the bid development process earlier on through our finance committee, through the buildings and grounds committee, depending on what the nature of the contract or the project is, to ensure that it includes all, payment terms, all the terms of the contract that the board would want to see. That's a possible solution that I'd like to propose.
I think it's a good solution. It's very proactive as opposed to reactive, which the contract review would obviously be reactive.
Right.
But to assist in putting bids together for either the negotiations committee, the finance committee, somebody. I think that would be a great proactive way to do things.
And you're on those committees, right?
I'm not on the buildings and grounds. I'm on the finance and negotiations.
Okay.
So, but I think that would be a great thing. I think assisting in the bid process
So prior
is
to the
equally
bid
as good.
going out,
Sure.
where then at that point the board is weighing in on what they want to see in the final bid.
Sure. And if bidders don't want to do the certain things, they'll just take exception to it, and that'll go into the process of evaluating the bids.
Right. So
I think that with maybe that piece could be with negotiations and a kind of like a offshoot of negotiations, right?
Can I just say that when we do these capital projects, that we have the architect involved and they use the AIA contract, they use a standard contract. So the field turf wasn't that. So the architect who has, vast experience with this, along with the attorney, because once we collect the bids, then the attorney reviews the bids. And then they issue I believe it's the AIA contract standard. That I don't know if you know that contract.
I understand what you're saying.
No, and I'm not saying that you can't review it at that point. I'm just saying there's a lot of oversight over those contracts when we go out to bid. And then once we get the contract, it goes to the attorney, and then the attorney looks through. Again, it's a very standard contract. I could send you that contract.
No, I understand. I know exactly what you're saying. And a lot of it's boilerplate.
Yes.
Okay. And a lot of boilerplate is exactly that. It's just boilerplate. And I agree with you that there's an architect who kind of knows what he's doing. There's a lawyer that kind of knows what they're doing, but they're architects and lawyers. All right. We have Vernon's best interest in mind. So I think that having eyes on it or having a say in what goes into the bid is very important. We're spending $3 million on capital projects over the next 3 or 4 years. That's a lot of money to not have a set of eyes on.
Oh, you most certainly can. I'm just giving you the background on how school contracts kind of work and the capital project contracts work.
So would that be a favorable solution for the board, that before we do put a project out to bid, that we're reviewing the bid specs within the committees of the board that would appropriately fall under?
But what committee would that be?
Yeah,
So if it was a building improvement, buildings and grounds committee would probably be the appropriate committee to review those bid specs.
But if Morton feels like he wants
Yeah,
to be
Miss-
part of that,
Right.
how would he be, like, would we ask a
Okay,
member
I see
to,
what you're saying.
you know what I mean?
But this goes back to a point that I would always recommend that those two committees be
I know.
combined.
You've been saying that.
I have been
for
saying that
for
since day
5 months.
one,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what I'm going over in one committee,
Yeah.
I'm then going over, so it would go through the buildings and grounds.
But
then
then
it
we
would
would have
also
a
come to
problem,
finance.
we would
Right,
only
like-
have 4 members and
Right.
we would have a
I
problem
think
with.
Yeah, no,
Ms.
we know
Linsky is
that.
saying
Yeah.
she would intend to bring both finance
I-
and buildings and grounds.
But she
As I've
wants to
been
combine
doing.
it.
But
I
she
know.
wa-
I know she
We know
does,
we,
but
we know we can't combine with more than 4 members. It was just a suggestion when Ms. Linsky got hired. I think in our previous district, I don't want to speak for her, the experience was that facilities and buildings and grounds and finance was combined, only a maximum 4-person committee, because a lot of it is the same discussion points, that's all.
So Mr. O'Donnell's on finance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you took it to finance, he
Yeah.
would have his
I
opportunity.
mean, I think it's important to
I
have
think
buildings
it's-
and grounds on a lot of these things because the scope falls under buildings and grounds, whereas the rest of the particulars of the contracts could either fall under negotiations or finance. So
So
I
those
I
two,
think the
those
two
two
could go to
committees,
both.
I think the finance and buildings and grounds committees are where the vast majority of these would be
Yeah.
reviewed. Would that work for the board?
Yeah, I
as
mean,
a
it can't
process?
hurt. It might help. It's a no-brainer.
Okay,
I mean, we still want to see the final contract.
Right.
You know, and we can still see it.
of course, absolutely. And Martin, again, I apologize. You did ask for that to be on the agenda. That was an oversight.
We got to discuss it anyway, so.
Yeah.
There was one other item I spoke with Karen about. I want a like a room for the board to like have these committee meetings in, like just have a set room in Walnut Ridge so that we can have our maybe mailboxes there, supplies there, things like that. So that way, a lot of times our committee meetings, they take a longer time. And if we're in an administrator's office, it's like we have to kind of quick get out of there and so that they can do their thing for their next appointment. I'd really like to have a room that we could have a conference table, some chairs around, and just be able to, like, we had negotiations the other day, and I just want it set up for the board members so that when we go, you know, or student life or what have you, or maybe we're looking over this contract, we have a place that we can go that's appropriated constantly for us, that we don't have to try to figure out.
That
whose
doesn't
room we're-
change.
Yeah,
So we don't have to push different tables together. So we go in, we have the meeting.
yeah, and
Given the number of hours that we put into committee meetings
right.
and the number of hours we put into board meetings and everything else, I don't think that's asking a lot. We have extra rooms over in Walnut Ridge, right?
Yeah,
And I don't think it's asking a lot. I mean, we have rooms that aren't being used.
right.
The only, and I did mention it in the hallway when negotiations was kind of chatting outside, is that every committee that the board has, one of us sits on, either Ms. Linsky or Dr. McKay or myself. So we are present for about 99.9% of those meetings, right? Finance obviously is Ms. Linsky. You know, Dr. McKay chairs, you know, curriculum and instruction. Mr. Fay hosts our special services committee meetings. And we do all have ample space, right, in the buildings to host board members. So this is one committee meeting that where the board members are meeting kind of exclusively of the administration. That happens once every several years with the topics that you're discussing at the current time. I'm not sure that, and I hope that nobody's ever felt rushed out of my office. When I have the board in for a committee meeting in my office or in Ruth's library, as we call it, I always leave ample time for board members to discuss what's on the agenda. So I'm not sure. We do have space. I'm not sure that there's a necessity for an office.
Well, I
feel
guess,
strongly
I guess
that
the
there
question
is.
that's not answered is,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you do it? What
Yeah.
reason would you be
Since we
against
have
doing
empty
it?
rooms.
We
If
do
we
You
didn't
know,
have
I mean,
empty
if you have
rooms,
the
it'd be
space
different.
and it creates a comfortable zone and a conference table and maybe even some AV if we need it or what have you,
Right.
for us to go, okay, we know the meeting's going to be in that room. It's going to be at this time.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if there's no reason not to do it,
Yes, it's very unconventional. Most board members
There's
don't have
nothing
office space in the
constant
school
but change.
district.
Well, it's
I
not
understand.
office
I'm
space,
just
It's
saying.
not an
just a
office
conference
space,
room.
it's a conference room.
It actually is
appropriated.
going to be the school also, so I don't know if that presents a problem with just board members coming in. Like, I don't believe
I
board
think they're
members.
talking about the other end of the hallway, like not where
We're
our
all the way
children.
down
are
at the end of the
sitting.
hall. There's empty rooms there. There's no reason why we can't have a place to sit and to be able to have our meetings.
I don't know, the appearance of it is that
The coalition has a free room. So I don't understand what the big problem is. This is becoming like a bigger thing than it really needs to be. I'd like a space.
But we're having a discussion, right?
Well, obviously we're not, because there seems to be a conflict here. We're asking for a space to be able to sit down and have our committee meetings in, that we don't feel rushed. We don't feel like we're in somebody else's way. And there have been times where we have had that situation. So, so anyway,
And if I could add on to like what Kelly's saying, I completely agree. I support this idea wholeheartedly. It is technically the Board of Education building. I fully believe that we should be able to have a space for us to be able to go in and sit down for any of our committees. And where I find it awkward is if we are in an administrator's office and they have to leave and they're like, no, stay. No, I don't want to stay in anyone's office when they are not present. So then the meeting has to end. So with the amount of hours that we put in, I agree. Even if it is unconventional, it's a great idea. And it offers us a place to be able to always host our meetings in a good conference room. And it's always available. We can let each other know when the meeting room is being used. And that way we can schedule our meetings around that, and then everyone can meet in them. So I agree with it.
I think that it's a good idea to have a meeting space. I just want to make sure that this is truly a conference room, right? That we're, board members, to Ms. Selinsky's concern, aren't coming and going from a building that has students in it, freely throughout the day. Like that we're communicating with the administration, we're scheduling meeting times, and we're using it for that appropriate purpose as a conference room for board committees. So
I mean,
I agree. I mean, we're not going to go in there and
we're not
have
going to
coffee
hang
and
around.
sit
and-
together. I mean, I like you all, but
Yeah.
and also when Walnut Ridge was open to preschoolers, the board made it very specific that one side of the building is a school and the other side is administrative offices. And we don't cross those fire doors because the other side is now, like it was in the past, being used as a school. So we have never, as board members, just walked into schools and walked around unannounced. We don't do that. And I don't foresee us doing that again on the preschool side. So therefore, we would use the board entrance and stay on that side of the fire doors.
May I make a request?
Yeah.
So we have the room, and I certainly understand the concerns about things like feeling rushed. I don't want people to feel rushed. I mean, I don't recall in the 3 years I've been here ending a meeting because of something else that was happening in the district. I have a very capable assistant who will generally notify me of something that's going on if I need to step out to handle it and then step back in. As the board is scheduling committee meetings, whether they be in the room or anywhere else, please keep myself, Dr. McKay, and Ms. Linsky informed so that we can be present if you need us. There are times that there's an email that says this meeting is going to be on this day. If I explain the schedule of the last 3 weeks, it's probably, it's like 16-hour days, 4 days a week, just because we're trying to fit everything into a really crazy school year. So my request would be, please keep us informed so that we can be present. If you're having a committee meeting where you need an administrator, we want to be of service to the board members. We want to provide whatever you need. And if we don't know about it, we can't assist you. So that's my only request.
I think that's fair. I mean, maybe we can have a policy of giving a certain amount of notice before we schedule our meetings in
We
advance.
schedule our meetings well in
Yeah,
advance.
so just whoever's the committee head, make sure to keep
So
to
it can be on my
inform.
calendar, to be honest.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
I'm a real slave to my calendar. So like, if it's not on there, I don't want to miss something that the board might need from me. That's all.
Okay.
Is that one
so
closed? 'Cause I have
are we
one-
all on mind on that? We will have a board conference room in
Yes.
Walnut Ridge. We will make sure that we're notifying the administration for what, when, and what purpose we're using it.
Yes.
All right, great. Anything else for open board member forum?
Just one thing on a happy note. Tonight happens to be the first ever ninth grade, as far as I know, ninth grade dance night. And I just wanted to thank everybody who put that together in a real rush, because I know we have a lot of end of year events and everybody's working really hard on all of them, but that one had to come together really quickly. And I can't mention everybody, but I know Dr. Anderson, Mrs. Moran, Mrs. Hill, Katie Lally, a lot of people, Tara, Brennan, put a lot of effort into making it happen. So I just wanted to mention that. We
I
really
think
appreciate
Mr.
that.
Demsek built something too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr.
yes.
Demsek.
We
Yeah,
have-
I
we have
really don't know
pictures, but
everybody.
We're gonna have to.
It's
do
not
that
a
another-
You have to
slideshow.
wait,
It's not a
yeah.
slideshow.
We didn't have the pictures. I wish we had them earlier.
I
Thank
think
you so
I
much.
think the
Yeah, the
kids
room
built
was, like,
everything
amazing,
That's
and
in there.
it's-
And I got the opportunity to go there, and it really is cool. I mean,
pretty cool,
they
right?
they really thought way out of the box. I know everybody hates that saying now, but they really did. I mean, it's like
The theme was Surfs Up,
the,
right?
the
So-
only thing I could
yeah.
equate it to is if you've ever watched those movies on TV where they had the high school dance in the gym and they did all kinds of crazy stuff. That's what that is.
Yeah.
It's almost like they took it right out of that book. And
It looks
any kid that
amazing.
goes there and doesn't have a good time, it's their fault.
Yeah,
Aw.
yeah. So, but we'll have a
That
slideshow.
was a lot of
next
work.
time.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Pellet. That was very nice that you recognized Mrs. Pellet.
I just had a couple, driving by today and I went to a couple of schools, a couple of events going on. I just want to recognize the faculty, the staff, the teachers, the children. I saw a bunch of activities going on at Cedar Mountain. I heard the band orchestra over at Lounsbury and the Wax Museum. They had Tesla and Edison right next to each other and there was no fighting.
Well said, Charles.
So I just want to recognize all the work that the teachers and students have put into that. They did a great job. I think I saw almost every student there at the Wax Museum. It was very good. They all studied hard and did a good job. It was nice seeing them all together again. The other thing I just want to comment on this, because I saw this and nobody said anything yet, but I don't know if
There's your chart.
I am very happy that it looks like April, we were at like a little over two.
Oh, yeah.
2 a week.
Yes.
And now in May, we're down to about a little bit over 1 a week.
Yeah.
So that gives me confidence going into September. I hope this is, I don't, for people at home, I guess this is the number of COVID cases per week.
Yeah.
And so, you guys, the administration, again, the staff, the teachers, do a good job of keeping our children safe. So that's what I-
Thank you, Charles.
One of the things, Charles, this afternoon or this morning that was wonderful was when they were doing the pre-K and then the kindergarten ceremonies,
Yeah.
the Glen Meadow Band walked across the field and played, and then they walked back. So you see this, it almost looked like vagabonds are all walking with their instruments across the field. They played there, and then, of course, when the ceremonies began, they were walking back, and it was just one of those wonderful Vernon things, you know, where the kids were helping each other out.
That's fun.
Okay. Do we need a second?
There's one more item we were to discuss, and that is.
Yes, we do.
You want me to discuss it?
Floor is yours.
Okay, so we have a request every year to make a donation to the John Kukula Memorial Scholarship Golf Outing. I do not recommend using board funds to fund a fundraiser, even though what they're doing is an absolute wonderful thing. There's no issue there. It is charitable donations with the use of public funds is not allowed. So I believe it's a $90 fee.
For a T sign.
For a T sign.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is do not pay it from public funds, but if everybody wants to support it, maybe everybody gives $10 to fund
Yeah,
the T.
I would be happy to donate.
Same here.
Yeah.
Person
I
to
mean, they
support
give
the team.
an enormous amount of scholarships.
Yes.
They do.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Who do we give the
program.
$10 to?
You know what? I can make a check out. He wants to come by and pick up a check, so I'll make a check out of my personal account, and then everyone
can
could
reimburse
just
you.
give me
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Can we Venmo it to you? I'm kidding.
I was gonna ask that seriously.
Yeah, that would be great, actually.
Venmo's my friend.
Love Venmo.
So I'll reach out to him tomorrow to let him know to come pick up the check.
Thanks,
And-
Teresa.
And how you want it written too,
Yeah,
because
it's-
normally it says Vernon Township School District.
Oh.
It's-
You could, I
Board
think,
of Ed.
the
Board of Ed,
members of the
yeah.
Board of Education.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Members
Did
of
you
the
put
Board of
my
Education.
name on top?
Yes,
No, no,
of
no.
course. I already got that. members of the Board of Education on behalf of the Vernon Township Schools. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Fine.
Well done.
Okay, anything else from board member forum?
We have to go.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank the people who came out this evening. Thank you very much.
Can we have a motion for a second? Can we have a motion for a second closed session for the purposes of discussing personnel matters, and action will not be taken when we come out?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sweeney, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very closed. Matt, do you want us to move, or do you